You wake up with no memories of who and where you are. All that you have to help you is a little bug, claiming he collided with your mind, driving out your memories. When I say you might think I mean the protagonist, but that's only partly true. I mean, of course, you play as the protagonist, but she has amnesia. No memories, no past, no thoughts, no character. Because in Amnesia, the protagonist is not only a blank slate due to her amnesia, she also is a pretty much silent protagonist, only speaking through your choices, and that is what makes the game so special. In most otome games you play as the heroine, but she has thoughts and speaks and shares her world with you and impressions with you. This way you gradually become her. What is often in the community referred to as self-inserting is actually rather a process of identification. You discover similarities between yourself and her, find attributes in her which reflect your ideal self, and empathize with her, all parts of identifying with a character. And more than half of otome players would describe themselves as self-inserting, meaning identifying with the character. Though in polls in the otome community it's rarely made clear what exactly is meant by self-inserting. A typical effect of identification with a character is the Proceedings effect. When you identify with the character, you tend to adapt according to associated stereotypes in the short term. Meaning, when you play an old person, you might walk more slowly. When you play an attractive person, you might behave more self-confident. When you play a heroine who's good at fighting, you might feel more motivated to give your best at the gym as well. But more about this in my otome stereotypes video. The way I see it, there are two alternative ways to experience a story to watching the story from a third-person perspective. One is the classical identification. You become the MC, with her character traits, her strength, her faults. The other is the self-insertion. The MC becomes you. You don't take over another person's character. You don't project yourself into another person's life. You are and stay you as you. A heroine prone for identification is of course one with a set character, a face, relatable faults, where you learn about her personal backstory to easily relate to her, who incorporates positive character traits you can project your wishes on, be it the feeling of similarity or empathy, or the mere exposure effect, that you spent a lot of time with her, all leading to building an emotional connection with her and experiencing the story as her. This phenomenon is also highly correlated with a feeling of transportation, feeling engrossed and immersed in a story. Though it's not exactly the same, you can feel transported without identifying with a specific character. And that is where the other process, the self-insertion, comes into play. On the other hand, we have the blank slate, even silent heroine, where you might not even know her thoughts, and she doesn't speak. Her character design might be eyeless, to characterize her even less. These heroines are made so the player can project herself into the main character, this time not with her character traits, but with your own. You don't play as someone else now, but as you. Not with her quirks, but your own. The way I see it, these are two different processes in two different directions. One time you become the heroine, the other time the heroine becomes you. And the last process, the process of self-inserting, is clearly what is supposed to happen in Amnesia. You are supposed to map yourself into the heroine and construct her character yourself, make her your own. Yourself. This gives the player more freedom for her own reactions, which are not restricted or guided by the MC's thoughts. The only guidance you have is Odeon, the so-called narrative assistant, giving you more information about the story outside the character's dialogue. In theory, he's not supposed to be the main character, but might give hints at the MC's thoughts or just provide you with background information, which would be usually conveyed by the protagonist herself. The other way to get more information about the main character are the so-called mind glimpses, revealing fraction of her character, like sudden memory flashbacks in Amnesia. So Amnesia makes use of a lot of narrative techniques, usually combined with that silent blank slate protagonist. You can compare it a bit to Zelda and that little fairy.
Hello, hey, listen!
And which shall in this case motivate players to play as themselves. and not as somebody else. Okay, but isn't that what the average faceless voltage heroine does as well? So can the self-inserting heroine really be the reason why Amnesia was so popular? And don't games like Todaware no Palma make even better use of this self-inserting heroine by actually giving you freedom and giving you choices that don't influence the outcome of the story or even trigger a bad ending? Well, it doesn't stop there. The second phenomenon that makes Amnesia so special is, well, the amnesia. By creating a protagonist who indeed has no memories, is in an unknown environment, and either too shy to show her character, or the loss of memories also diminished her personality. So the player is in the exact same situation as the protagonist. And in this setting, it absolutely makes sense. There is no strong, proactive and talkative protagonist. And the lack of talk is balanced out with the flood of choices. Every 5 seconds you can make a choice on what to say and to do, which probably makes Amnesia one of the most interactive otome games without classical gameplay, just with choice overload. This way, the player is given more chances to really put yourself into the game. Though, is that really the case? Not quite. As still, the sheer infinite number of choices will dictate which ending you get. You still have to worry about growing the affection between you and your ally, and to hide your amnesia so your friends won't call you insane and institutionalize you into a clinic. That's at least what the bug Orion says will happen. So in the end, there's not much room to freely choose the choices which reflect your own personality the most. But it's about making the clever choices, reading the air, assessing the situation, analyzing Odion's hints. Unlike in a game like Arcana Familia, the choices aren't brimming with personality, so you can shape the silent heroine however you see fit, with choices that just shape her character but won't change the course of the story. In Amnesia, the choices are more about the art of reading people than actually being yourself. But this again fits the tone of the game. Silent protagonists are often chosen to give the game a more suspenseful tone, and I can't recall another otome with such an eerie and unsettling atmosphere. Odion makes it clear to you, you must not trust anybody. Anybody could become your enemy. You don't even know yourself. And this unique combination of uncanny situations makes the game so special, and the silent blank slate heroine actually enhanced the eerie atmosphere. That is especially true for Shin's route, which feels a lot like a murder mystery story with a little romance, as we apparently already are in a relationship with Shin, and so its relationship development kinda told backwards. Similarly, in Thoma's route, you receive death threats, and Thoma is the only ally you can turn to. I felt that in Ikki's and Ken's routes, the whole mystery was less a focus of the routes, which allowed for more character and relationship development. Ukyo, who unlocks after you've played the other 4 characters, should have been the climax of the suspense story, but got lost in repetitive scenes and didn't quite manage to convey their feelings by telling instead of showing, which made the revelations less impactful than they could have been. Especially as this is a game where it totally makes sense to play the bad ends, as they help you to understand the overall plot better. But how much you enjoy self-inserting also depends on how much you are spooked before the wall breaks. As you are the heroine yourself, there is no protagonist character in between you and the game. Everything said is said directly to you. You are directly in the game. Your reaction is observed. There's no heroine to hide behind. It's all up to you. And this also suddenly shifts the responsibility from the heroine over to you. You cannot say, oh, the MC did that. No, this time it was all your fault. And being addressed directly makes you more self-aware how you're perceived from the outside. Like looking into a mirror, not being anonymous anymore, not being able to hide behind another character. Being fully responsible and self-aware is spooky. Giving up our responsibility and yielding ourselves to another authority makes us more likely to make irresponsible, cruel and selfish choices. So not being able to make someone else responsible, to be in the game world as ourselves, not as somebody else, makes us be on our toes even more and more afraid of making a wrong decision, because you would be to blame. And that is of course conducive for the eerie tone of the game, but you also have to live with this unsettling feeling for the about 25 hours of the game, and that made it less enjoyable for me personally. This is a clever mechanic, but it's uncanny and uncomfortable for me. I much more enjoy becoming another person. I mean, I'm already together with myself the whole day when I dress, script and edit this video. Oh, hi there! So I do appreciate time away from myself while indulging in fiction. It makes me feel at ease to find peace in another person's character, being at home in another's mind, but I couldn't do that with Amnesia. So in the end I decided to mute Orion and pretend he's the heroine, and I became a bug. And I seriously wish I did that before he suddenly started screaming in a sudden kiss scene. But I think my lovely patrons would also support me as a bug. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I have your support no matter what, and it really means a lot to me. Also, the game didn't make full use of the parallel universe concept, which you encounter frequently in visual novels, like in one of the first visual novels actually, you know. But in otome games I can only recall Sansensei Yugi, who uses parallel universes to tell a story. So if you know more, please tell me. So for using this concept alone, I think Amnesia is quite special. Treating each route you play like a parallel world, completely resetting what you thought you knew, so you can experience the unsettling feeling of not knowing what is going on in every route again. And again, Orion warns you that people who are your friends in one route might be your enemies in another world. Just like the card theme of the world, each run reshuffles the cards. But though that was kind of true, I still felt that most characters were similarly enough not to be like self-contradictory, to stay somehow consistent, though of course they could indeed play vastly different roles in the different worlds. Still, I think that the yet unlocalized FD or sequel of Amnesia World made better use of this concept overall by presenting completely different worlds to play through: a normal cafe life world, a music idol setting, a criminal investigation with chibis, or the biggest world, the classical school life. And in the true root world, these were all connected brilliantly. But by telling the player in Amnesia Memories that these are all parallel worlds, it kind of revealed the big plot twist too much for me already. Nevertheless, I totally see why Amnesia is so special, and was almost revolutionary more than 10 years ago, with the self-insertion heroine, enhancing the overall eerie atmosphere, holding the player more responsible for their choices, and making use of the multiverse theory. So why didn't the sequel Amnesia World sell as well as the first game? Did players start to be fed up? Is Orion just better than Nova? Or was this whole analysis of the perfect self-insertion heroine just useless? And all that counts in the end is a cage, pretty art, a high frequency of CGs, surreal backgrounds, hot seiyus, 1,000 bells and the bee outfit. And do yourself a favor and play the game before you watch the anime, because anime otome game adaptations are just, well, found out in that video.